Welcome to the show. You are one-on-one with Wes the Sports Guy here on YouTube and streaming online all the time at westhesportsguy.com. Make sure you bookmark that site. It is brand spanking new, 10-year anniversary, and lots coming, I should say, to that website. Make sure you bookmark westhesportsguy.com. And as always, to participate in the conversation weekly, use the hashtag #OneOnOneWes. And don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell when you get to the YouTube page for all the latest videos when they are posted at YouTube. Let's get right into it with a quick playoff recap. Going into the NBA right now, the Western Conference is pretty much up for grabs with the top seeds in command of their series, with the Warriors, Rockets, and Portland Trail Blazers ahead in their series respectively. The number 2 seed Denver Nuggets are down to the San Antonio Spurs 2-1 going into this weekend's action. And in the Eastern Conference, the top seeds are in command of their series as well, with the Milwaukee Bucks and Boston Celtics both having not lost a game yet. They are ahead in their series. And you have the Toronto Raptors and the Philadelphia 76ers also ahead in theirs by a 2-1 margin. In the National Hockey League, you have a pretty much up for grabs moment, if you want to call it that, in the NHL, where in the Eastern Conference, the Tampa Bay Lightning and the Pittsburgh Penguins are both swept by their opponents. Columbus and New York, the Islanders, respectively, have swept their opponents, and they have moved on to the second round or semifinals in the National Hockey League Stanley Cup playoffs, And in the Western Conference, you had the Colorado Avalanche knocking out the top seed Calgary Flames in a 4-1 series win for them. You have Vegas pending with a 1-game win to get into the next round, and also the St. Louis Blues are 1 win away from beating the Winnipeg Jets. Nashville, Dallas are tied at 2 apiece, and you have Washington and Carolina back in the East, also tied at 2 going into this weekend. And Toronto is ahead of Boston by a 3-2 margin in their series as well. Going into a quick baseball topic here this week, the bat flip seen around the world by Chicago White Sox shortstop Tim Anderson, and I'm going to have the video up for you to see for yourself real quick. Basically, he hits a home run at a pretty big point in the game, and then thus flips his bat and then makes a gesture towards his own dugout, mind you, in the video. But if anybody was to take umbrage with that, it was definitely going to be the Royals, which did not either like the bat flip or did not like the exuberance that Tim Anderson showed in that moment. But basically, the way I come down on it is this. I know there's a lot of unwritten rules in baseball. I like baseball. It's my favorite sport by far. I know football is very popular here on this show and on my website, and as is basketball and hockey to a certain degree. But baseball is my number one love when it comes to sports. And when I like talking about it and when I like watching stuff, baseball's at the top. But I digress. I'm okay with the bat flips. I'm perfectly fine with that. I'm not totally opposed to it. Guys want to... it's a big point in the game. Granted, it is April. It's not very important to see guys flipping bats over a home run right now, but it was a big part of the game. And that moment in time, that's how he showed it. Was he really showing up the pitcher doing that? Not really. I don't see it that way. The pitcher did, because of next at bat, Tim Anderson was plunked in the backside. Not dirty by any sense of the imagination, but of course, benches cleared, tempers flared, and him and the pitcher, Mitch Keller, for the Kansas City Royals, were both ejected. Now, it turns out afterwards Anderson was ejected because he hurled a racial epithet, but again, that's beside the point. Of course, they're going to chagrin on that, and they do not want that naughty language in the game at all. Good luck curbing that, but again, that's why he was suspended for that and thrown out. But the bat flip, I have no problem with it. I do have a problem with the guys eyeballing their baseball after they've hit it and deciding to just walk around the bases. That I have a problem with. But when you're going to flip your bat, I have no issue with it. I don't see any problem with it. Other teams are going to have problems with it, and I get that. That's the right way to handle it on the field when it comes to retribution, if you want to call it that. They did it the right way. It should have been the end of it. But again, now the conversation is, do we need bat flips? It's been around for a while now. I don't think you're going to get rid of it anytime soon. Time for the segment that won't poop on the city streets, a la San Francisco. Do you remember?
You remember?
Do you remember the last time a team with the best record in the league during the regular season was swept in the opening round of a playoff series? Well, I can tell you right now, you won't, and you don't remember because it hasn't happened before, at least in a 7-game series to be more specific. In the NHL, the Tampa Bay Lightning had 62 regular season wins, tied the record for most wins in a regular season in the NHL in its history. Well over 100 years, mind you. And they got swept in the first round by the Columbus Blue Jackets, which rightfully in old playoff brackets, they'd be an 8th seed, but because of the way they've structured the playoffs, they technically aren't the 8th seed, but regardless, they were the lower seed in the conference, and they swept the Lightning. I have to stress how important this is to you. This is like the 73-win Golden State Warriors a few years ago in the NBA, which had a 3-1 series lead against the Cleveland Cavaliers in the NBA Finals and blew that lead to lose the finals. It's as close as you can get to that moment, except this is by far worse because you didn't even get to the finals. You lost in the opening round. So imagine if the Warriors had been swept in the opening round of the playoffs with a 73-win season. It's just that bad. And I can't stress this enough because the Tampa Bay Lightning did not watch every single point of the games during their opening round series against the Blue Jackets. But the highlights that I did see, after the first period in Game 1, when Tampa Bay had a 3-0 lead, they went on to give up 4 unanswered goals in that game and lost. From that point on, after that first period in the first game, the Lightning had no chance. Absolutely none. It was over for them. And simply because I'm going to have to say, because during the regular season, they made it look so easy, winning games left and right. The longest losing streak they had was 2 games the entire year. 2-game losing streak. That was the longest one they had. They made it look too easy. So they figured with a 3-0 lead after the first period in the first game of the series, they figured, oh, this is going to be just as easy. No problem. They underestimated their opponent. And that was their downfall. And, of course, you've got an amazing goaltender in Sergei Bobrovsky, who is a Vezina Trophy winner, mind you, for the Columbus Blue Jackets. He was on fire at that point from the rest of the series on. The team played great. Special teams was awesome. And their defense was just shutting them down. They have weapons all over the place on this Tampa Bay Lightning team. I can't stress that enough. You can't win 62 games and not be good. This team was great. This was one of the best teams assembled in recent NHL history. And they got swept in the opening round. It's pretty bad. But again, go back and look at the highlights yourself if you want. After that first period in the first game, the Lightning were done. They underestimated them poorly, and they suffered for it. And that's the result. You lose in 4 games, and now you go down as one of the biggest failures, not just in sports history, but of course hockey history as well. This is devastating to them. And if I were them, kind of start blowing it up. I'm not going to say start trading everybody, but there's guys that are going to want extensions here pretty soon. Some other big names that didn't get extensions yet. You might have to start trading off those assets now because you're going to be in cap hell very, very soon for the Tampa Bay Lightning. Time for my feel-good story of the week. This comes from this past week's Boston Marathon.
In fact, one man crawled on his hands and knees across the finish line. We're learning tonight that he is a Marine who refused to give up. WBC's Tiffany Chan shows us what motivated him and many more to keep pushing to the finish.
You hear so many stories of inspiration as to why some people run the Boston Marathon, and of course the spectators who stick around and cheer the last of them on. I spoke with one former Marine from Ohio. He told me he was finishing this marathon even if he had to crawl to the finish line, and that's just what he did today. You can see the pain and grit in Micah Herndon's face as he's inching towards the finish.
I'm doing this on my own.
His legs locked out near mile 22, forcing the Afghanistan veteran to get on his hands and knees. Micah wasn't giving up, drawing inspiration from 3 fellow comrades who didn't survive a bombing attack overseas.
I say their last names out loud, when I'm listening to my music. I just repeat Ballard, Hamer, Juarez, Ballard, Hamer, Juarez.
In that same fighting spirit, a powerful image of 2 uniformed soldiers carrying an exhausted runner down Boylston Street. It's the same camaraderie that brought these two together. Thomas Smith has been paralyzed 3 times. He walked the entire 26.2-mile route with 2 canes and a new friend.
Super emotional. I have to thank Carlos. We met around mile 3, and he could have easily run off, but he stuck by me all the way.
Don't left anybody behind. We finished together.
Spectators who braved the rain and wind were brought to tears by their story, showing that there's no limit.
I'm 73, so definitely no limitation. I hope I'm still doing it when I'm 85.
And no obstacle they can't overcome.
The pain that I was going through is nothing compared to the pain that they went through.
And Micah says this was his first marathon he's ever participated in. He didn't get the time that he wanted, but this certainly won't be his last race. In Boston, I'm Tiffany Chan for WBZ News.
Thank you, Micah, for your service, and I salute you and all of our military. Thank you very much for your service, and that is just an amazing story. You get those stories every single year of the Boston Marathon, even before the tragic events of what happened many years ago now at the Boston Marathon. You still get stories like that every year at that amazing week that they have in Boston every single April when it comes to the marathon. Then you've got opening day with the Boston Red Sox, and it's just a good time all the way around. But it emphasizes it right there at that moment there, the Boston Marathon. So I salute you all once again. Thank you for your service. And with this being a Passover and Easter weekend, I'd like to say I hope you have a blessed weekend. I hope you count your blessings and be thankful, even though this is the Thanksgiving, but be thankful for what you have and be blessed. And I hope you have yourself a good weekend. Until then, I hope you subscribe and hit that bell before you check out next week's video and all the latest videos at YouTube, and make sure you use the hashtag #OneOnOneWest so I can see what you're talking about and be participating in the weekly conversations every single week right here on YouTube. And be sure to subscribe, hit that bell, as I said. Go to WestSportsGuy.com. Until then, I will see you next time.